Welcome to Tribe News. On this edition, we'll be discussing sleep deprivation and the effects it has on students.
And I talk about the dangers of teen vaping and what you might not know about it. I'm Carson Ackerman.
And I'm Derek Aragon. These stories and more on this edition of Tribe News.
E-cigarettes are becoming increasingly popular and a bigger issue with teenagers. We don't really know much about them. We know it has harmful effects, but there's so much more to the topic. I got the opportunity to dive into this story to learn more about teen vaping.
Vaping. It's an epidemic all across the nation, a problem many high school hallways are all too familiar with, as over 25% of high school students reported that they had vaped in the last 30 days on a federal survey. While we don't know the long-term effects, we do know that the results so far are chilling. According to the CDC, as of December 10, 2019, there have been 2,409 reported hospitalizations and 52 vaping-related deaths in the United States. These haunting numbers stem from a pod chock full of addictive nicotine, a drug that medical professionals say can cause damage just by itself.
We know definitely, just looking again at nicotine alone, it affects your heart. It increases your heart rate, can affect your blood vessels, increasing the risk of atherosclerosis.
While we know nicotine is addictive and dangerous, it's not the only thing found in vapes. Upon studying cartridges and pods, items such as acrolein, a chemical associated with weed pesticide, propylene glycol associated with antifreeze, nickel, lead, and formaldehyde, which the Environmental Protection Agency calls a probable human carcinogen, have all been found. However, there's more than just those inside of cartridges, and teens aren't consuming them in the healthiest way.
Of course, nicotine's in there, benzoic acids in there. Some have shown a compound called diacetyl. That's important because we've known that diacetyl can cause serious injury in something called popcorn lung that was found in a bunch of workers that worked in a buttered popcorn factory, and they got irreversible lung damage from this component called diacetyl. And so actually some of the studies they've done on pods, that's been found in there. So the way we take something into our mouth and our digestive tract handles it is very differently than when you heat it up and change it into something and breathe it into your lungs, because your lungs were not made to digest products.
It is extremely easy for teens to get addicted. Take Juul Labs, for example, a $24 billion company that held 75% of the e-cigarette market heading into 2019. Their Juul pod is high in nicotine, so high in fact that this pod that is not even 1 inch in length has roughly the same amount of nicotine as that of a pack of cigarettes. Teenagers can get addicted with just half of a cigarette. That's about 5 puffs from a Juul. It's this high level of nicotine and the way that teen brains work that has both teachers and doctors alike concerned.
Teens are at risk because, brain development, it is easier to become addicted to things with a less developed brain, and again, that brain develops till about the age of 25, and so you're talking about just thing that's easier to become addicted to because of the stages of life that a teen's at. Also, with vaping, such high levels of nicotine, it's way higher than if you smoked one cigarette.
Teens are more at risk, primarily because addiction is a form of learning, and your brain is in a huge phase of learning. It makes brain synapses, so that's the connection between cells, faster, and it's laying down those pathways to help you remember how to use this information that you're learning and absorbing every day in a quick mode as you get older. And so that nicotine primes that brain to lay down those pathways, especially to highly fun activities. As you all know, when you're in a fun class or at a fun program or a concert, like, you remember events in great detail. But if something's kind of boring, you don't remember it, and that's because that pleasure center of your brain is being activated. And it's just the same for nicotine. Specifically, nicotine that is in the pods lays that down. What may be just an experimentation with friends that was 3 or 4 puffs because maybe they were doing it and you just wanted to fit in, then the next day your brain is like, man, that felt good, we should do that again. And you can't stop thinking about it until you kind of give in. And I just think it's crazy because you want to stop, but you can't.
Not only to make the situation worse for teenagers, many believe children are being marketed towards. Some believe that with the use of advertisements with modern designs and young people on the ads, along with fruity flavors, Juul has been targeting teens. While for others, it's the design that makes it marketed towards kids.
To an extent, I think that there's definitely a lot, when you talk about Juuls and making it so small and discreet, if someone is of legal age and can do it, there's no reason to make it discreet and tiny, you know, to where Juuls by themselves, that company, I think there's definitely some making it look cool, making it look, you know, modern and fun a little bit, but I think the worst are the ones where they're totally concealable, you know, little watches or make them look like pens or hoodie strings. But when you start marketing things like that just to be concealed, there's no reason someone that's of legal age would want to conceal to that level to where that's all marketed just towards underage.
Kevin Burns, former CEO of Juul Labs, however, disagrees with the belief that his company targeted teenagers and offered this to parents of children who battled the addiction in an interview with CNBC. First of all, I tell them that I'm sorry that their child's using the product. It's not intended for them. I hope there was nothing that we did that made it appealing to them. As a parent of a 16-year-old, I'm sorry for them, and I have empathy for them in terms of what the challenges they're going through. Regardless of a statement, several school districts throughout Kansas are suing e-cigarette manufacturers for targeting teenagers. But other than having a strict no-drug policy, what's being done about vaping at Hayes High?
At Hayes High, I know I'm just more vigilant. We're watching a lot of the different bathrooms and locker rooms where the kids have shown to use the vapes and the different devices in those rooms. And just stay more open. I talk about it a lot in my classes and get other students to talk about it as well. I don't know how much more can be done. We're vigilant against it. The students should know how bad it is as all the news and everything come out. And you know, the scientific evidence just keeps coming up that it's bad, and you're vaporizing chemicals that you suck into your body. And so you'd hope everyone, I think, just keeping everyone informed and hopefully the students get on board with that.
All in all, what might be the scariest thing about vaping is the unknown. While we have already seen side effects, we don't know if it's the worst of it. We don't know all the effects of vaping, especially the long-term effects.
I think it's dangerous because we don't know a lot about it. Every day you read the news and there's some other different form of disease or medical thing that they found in connection with it. On that end of things. And the other thing that's so dangerous is because when younger students use it, the brain is still developing until the age of close to 25, and you give that high level nicotine that vapes deliver, it actually stunts the growth. So there's scientific evidence to say that if you vape, before your 20s, your brain will develop less as you grow.
You're basically a human research project, right? Unfortunately, this is not a product that was highly researched and tested prior to its release on the market. And so we don't know all the things it's going to do to your body or the dangers that it entails, and we may not know those completely for another 10 to 15 years.
It's apparent that vaping does not go without harm, and the odds are truly stacked against teenagers, and it really does affect the whole community. So let's all become better aware and better informed, and together put an end to the issue affecting countless lives of children throughout our nation. For Tribe News, this has been Carson Ackerman.
Most everyone is familiar with the 4.0 grading scale, which includes the letter grades of A, B, C, D, and F. Yet the Wichita School District is implanting a new grading scale for elementary schools. Cameron Young visited with administration and teachers on their feelings in regard to USD 259's new scaling system.
At Hayes High, an A through F grading scale has always been what's used to determine our grades, but that's not the case for everybody. Starting in Wichita elementary schools, USD 259 will be switching over to a 0 through 4 grading scale. Hayes High principal Martin Straubs believes that in a way, the 0 through 4 scale is very similar to an A through F scale, and argues that a 4.0 scale works just fine for Hayes High students.
When you look at it, it's probably not a lot different than an A, B, C, D, or F. I've been in other school districts where we have a weighted GPAs before, and bottom line is when our students leave Hayes High, those kids all in their applications have to put everything back on a 4.0 scale. I will tell you that it's a traditional grading system. We do actually weight a little bit when a student receives a plus on a B plus. They do get a 0.5 extra grade average. So we have a little bit of a weighting already. And again, ultimately, when our students compete with other students from other schools on scholarship applications, everything has to be put back to a 4.0. So trying to keep things more manageable for the kids and for the families and for our counselors, I think the 4.0 system works well for us at Hayes High. Fiddler on the Roof has a song called Tradition, and I guess that, for lack of better reason, is probably why most schools use it. It's just a tradition in the American school system. I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's the only way, but we certainly We certainly are more of a traditional comprehensive high school, and so I guess not only here at Hayes High, but probably 95 to 190% of our schools in the state of Kansas use that system.
KWCH also states that the teachers are very fond of the new system and only have good things to say about it, and so does Wilson kindergarten teacher Angie Hoskins. Wilson Elementary School uses a similar 1 through 4 scale for their K through 2 grades, and Mrs. Hoskins believes it to be a better representation of what the child knows.
For K through 2, we have a rubric system that is 1 through 4, and it shows each individual standard and whether the child has mastered it. We have our math series is broken down to each of the standards, and so each chapter that we teach, so for instance the first chapter is numbers 0 through 5, and then that's marked on their report card for a 1 through 4 whether they have mastered that or not. I do think it gives a better representation of what the child knows. Instead of just saying they have an A in math, it shows each individual standard and what they've mastered.
Similar to Mr. Straub, Hayes High science teacher Alan Neal states that it may be difficult when dealing with the college application, and it may be hard to transfer over.
I think no matter what the grading scale is, A through F, 0 through 4, students, once they get comfortable with what the grading scale tells them, they'll have a really good understanding of where they're at. As long as you're giving your students constant feedback or relatively constant feedback, both student and teacher have an understanding of where they're at and what they can handle and what they're struggling with. I don't think the type of grading scale used necessarily tells a student that they understand the material or tells the teacher that they understand the material. It's more timely returns on the assignments and grades that they're receiving. I would have reservations at a high school for a 0 through 4 scale, only because when you talk about high school students and you talk about seniors, you're talking about college applications. I'm not sure how colleges would look upon a 4-point grading scale or a 0 through 4 grading scale when most students are working A through F. I'm sure an explanation on a transcript, however, would be enough for a college to understand what's going on.
Whether or not this is a possibility for Hayes High, we look forward to seeing how it plays out for Wichita Public Schools. For Hayes High's Tribe Broadcasting, I'm Camry Young.
Every October, the Hayes High Decca program teams up with local organizations to collect non-perishable food items for the Community Assistance Center for those who are less fortunate during the holiday season. For more on the story, here's Alicia Fireherm.
For the last 36 years, community members have volunteered to collect non-perishable food items for the Community Assistance Center for trick-or-treat so others can eat. We sat down with Decca instructor Shayna Pro to discuss the origin of the program, as well as Decca's current involvement in the food collection.
Trick or Treat So Others Can Eat actually started in 1983 by two sisters as their 4-H project, and it was their community project. Once they got into high school, the younger sister was a Decca member in 1985. Connie Hazelhorst is her name, and she started this as her community service project.
Trick or Treat So Others Can Eat has evolved over the years, growing from a single 4-H group to a network of 27 different organizations that volunteer each year.
We had 12,465 items that night, and then hopefully more contributions will come in throughout the rest of the month. We had several large cash donations as well, which will help buy eggs, milk, bread, those items that don't keep very well, so that's what that cash is used for. Having good weather did help us, but we were down a little bit in our collection. I think last year we were over 15,000.
Once organizations bring in their collections, the food is then sorted and processed in a very efficient manner.
We usually have students outside greeting people to help unload, and then we have a check-in person that has their tally sheet and their information, and then from there it goes into the sorting area where we count, we cross off all the UPC codes so that people can't get food and then take it back to the store to try to cash it out. And then it's sorted into the different containers like, soups, green beans, corns, fruit, and then it's put into either storage or back in the kitchen shelves.
As a reminder, the Community Assistance Center is always accepting donations, so if you happen to miss Trick or Treat So Others Can Eat, you can always drop off non-perishable food items at their collection center. For Tribe Broadcasting, I'm Alicia Firegirl.
USD 489 recently added a new filtering system that limits what both students and staff alike are allowed to access on their devices. I spoke with GPS Pro Miss Munch and science teacher Mr. Dickerson about their thoughts and concerns on the change.
USD 489 recently added a new filtering system that limits what both students and staff alike are allowed to access on their devices. I was granted the opportunity to speak to Ms. Munch and Mr. Dickerson about their thoughts and concerns on the change.
I've noticed that the kids are struggling sometimes of getting their homework done because there have been some websites that have been blocked, and we've had to email and try to get those unblocked. And sometimes in there, they unblock it, but you can't click on certain things in there because it's still blocked. So they're really struggling with that in there. But other than that, it's been a pretty good thing that the kids can stay off of games and stuff that they're not supposed to be on.
The main thing I've noticed is just the speed of the internet overall. We've had some issues with some things, like I had the kids design their own website and I couldn't publish it. So I've noticed that there's been some things that I could do before that I couldn't do. Overall, I mean, it's just kind of the speed, I would say, is the main thing that I've seen affected.
Teachers aren't the only one with an opinion on the situation. I took to the halls of Hayes High and spoke with students whom felt that they should be heard.
I understand that the school needs to filter what students are processing on their computers. However, at the start of the filtering system going out, I actually lost an English essay that I wrote because my OneDrive wouldn't save. So that's how it affected me, and I don't think it's very fair that our schoolwork is being hurt because of it.
I personally think it's ridiculous. The people who want to make bad decisions on the computer will find a way around it. I know so many people who already have. The people who are going to make the good decisions would have followed the what they had set already. The filter will do nothing, and it's affected me in no way.
Sleep deprivation has become more and more prevalent in the adolescent years, ages 13 to 18. When adolescents participate in many activities such as exams, homework, and sports, it is extremely difficult to get a full night's sleep. Tribe News reporter Emily Kreitzer sat down with Mr. Matt Brooks, psychology teacher at Hayes High, to learn more about teen sleep deprivation.
About 87% of American high school students are chronically sleep deprived. Teenagers need at least 8 to 10 hours of sleep to function best. Without getting the proper hours of sleep needed per night, students limit their ability to listen, learn, and problem solve. Today we interviewed high school psychology teacher Mr. Brooks to get his insight on teen sleep deprivation.
My name is Matt Brooks. I've been teaching psychology now for, I believe, 13 years. I've been at Hayes High. This is my 24th year. I think it's one of the biggest problems we have. I think sleep deprivation for teenagers is something that's kind of self-inflicted. Teenagers do it themselves. I also think that the system, it's kind of built in that they cannot get enough sleep. And that's mainly due to what they refer to as delayed sleep phase syndrome among teenagers. And what happens there is after puberty or into the early teen years, teenagers, most, not all, because this is generalized, but most teenagers fall into this category where their natural sleep cycle changes. And so their natural sleep time, instead of going to bed at, say, 9 o'clock, as they did in grade school, middle school, 8, 9 o'clock, now all of a sudden it's like almost 2 hours later for them. It becomes something that they can't sleep past, like normal sleep time would be more like midnight, is more comfortable, and then sleeping in till 9 or 10 o'clock. So sleep deprivation is a serious problem. During dream sleep, these channels open up that kind of wash out these toxins and help us think clearer in the morning. And that's why the typical adult, teenager, doesn't matter, if they wake up after not having a lot of sleep or bad sleep, they're going to feel foggy. They're not going to, the next day, they're not going to feel great, mainly because of that happening. So teenagers, by getting an average, which my classes really average just over 7 hours of sleep a night, they are not getting the extra REM periods of sleep that they need in order to maximize brain function. It's built in for the system. If we're requiring students to get up around 7 o'clock to get to school by 8-ish, then it's kind of built in that yeah, the schedule is not in their favor at all. Now, some teenagers can go to sleep at 9 and 10 o'clock at night. Now, I'm talking about on a consistent basis. I'm talking about consistently being able to go to sleep at a healthy time for them. Again, most of the time it's around midnight-ish, 1 o'clock, and yet the school time does not change. And so, therefore, the students are getting roughly 7 hours of sleep. It's hard for them to focus. It's hard for them to do several things. And you can eat the best diet in the world, you can exercise and be in great shape, but if you're not getting the sleep, you're not maximizing those other two things. Sleep is the most neglected thing that most people do, not just teenagers. But for teenagers, it absolutely affects the way they behave in classes. It's hard for them to concentrate. I think also physically, it affects their stress levels quite a bit. This is a time for teenagers because of all the hormones and things involved for depression, anxiety issues. Sleep deprivation makes those worse. Sleep deprivation complements that, unfortunately, and then that's what increases it all. My advice to teens about sleep deprivation is they have to make a concerted effort to put in their schedule, because some students are very organized, sleep. Put it in. The idea would be getting to sleep around 11 o'clock, waking up at 7, that's 8 hours. They need 9, but 8 is acceptable for teenagers. I think some teenagers get in the habit, they need to recognize, I'm on my computer, I'm gaming, I'm on my phone looking at social media. They need to recognize that stuff and consciously make a decision to get more sleep, recognizing the benefits of it. And then try to back it off by about 20 minutes for about a week or two, and then try to go back another 20 minutes. Because if you're used to going to bed at 1 o'clock and you try to go to bed at 11, you're probably just going to, you're not going to go to sleep right away. Teenagers need to do the best that they can to get as much sleep as they can. The system works against them, so they need to make a conscious effort to do a better job if they can.
Some interesting facts shared there by Mr. Brooks. Derek, you been getting enough sleep?
Fell behind a little bit this week, but hopefully this weekend I can get caught back up.
I wish you good luck with that. In the meantime, make sure to follow us on Twitter and YouTube. Signing off, this has been Carson Ackerman
and Derek Aragon.
Thanks for watching.